Thanks for listening to the Red Treehouse, where I tell scary stories to keep you up at night. You can listen to the Red Treehouse on your favorite streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to follow, like, and subscribe. Oh, and leave a 5-star review. You can follow the Red Treehouse on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X, Threads, and Facebook at Red Treehouse Pod. And now you can find the Red Treehouse on Patreon. Join the Red Treehouse community for as little as $3 per month and receive exclusive member benefits. Simply go to patreon.com/Red Treehouse. As always, if you have a scary story or topic you'd like me to feature on an upcoming episode, email redtreehousepod@gmail.com. Important note: sources for this episode can be found in the show notes. The Red Treehouse is dedicated to my dad. I love you, Pop. Did you know fall is my favorite season? When the temperatures drop, the leaves change color, and there's a chill in the air, because it means Halloween is just around the corner. And if you're like me, it doesn't take much to catch the Halloween spirit. Movies, books, haunted attractions, and scary stories to keep you. With Halloween just 2 weeks away, it seems like a great time to tell a good, old-fashioned, haunted house story. In arguably one of the most haunted houses in the United States, the Sallie House is said to be haunted by the spirit of a young girl named Sallie, who died there. Except it's widely believed Sallie, quote, is also thought to be a facade for something more demonic, end quote. We've covered other haunted locations before, including my own house. But the Sallie House may just be the scariest, with poltergeist activity that includes physical assault. In fact, a quick Google search pulls up websites and articles claiming it is the most haunted house in Kansas, possibly in America, and maybe even the world. In this episode of the Red Treehouse, we're going to explore the Sallie House, a truly terrifying place. What spirits lie behind the walls of this seemingly normal home in Atchison, Kansas? Is it truly the most haunted house in the United States? And if given the chance, would you spend the night there? I'll share the details. You decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Welcome to the Red Treehouse. At first glance, the home at 508 North 2nd Street in Atchison, Kansas seems rather normal. A modest 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-story home with brick columns out front and weathered siding all around. It hardly seems like one of the most haunted homes in the United States. Yet, again and again, I read articles that could essentially be summed up in one sentence. Don't judge a book by its cover, because you'll get more than you bargained for. The Sallie House was built sometime in the late 1800s for Dr. Charles Finney and his family. It is believed he practiced medicine on the ground level of the home, and his family resided in the upstairs portion. One article stated, quote, "The front served as office space and examination rooms, while the doctor and his family lived upstairs." End quote. Despite this, some claim this would not have been possible due to the space limitations in the home. The lore surrounding the house is rooted in two theories, each with the same outcome. In the first theory, Dr. Finney was awakened in the middle of the night by the mother of a 6-year-old girl who was complaining about abdominal pain. Dr. Finney completed a quick examination and discovered her appendix was close to rupture. Rather than rush her to a medical facility or a hospital, he opted instead to perform the surgery himself, at his home, and without anesthesia. The second theory suggests the girl was the result of an affair between Dr. Finney and an unnamed woman. Like the first theory, the girl became violently ill and was taken to the Finney residence. Fearful someone would discover the affair if Sallie went to the hospital, Dr. Finney performed the appendectomy himself, with disastrous results. The girl, named Sallie, suffering from the pain of her swollen appendix and the makeshift surgery, went into shock from blood loss and died on the operating table. On the surface, this seems like the perfect, if not tragic, backstory for a haunting. Except here's the thing. There is no record of a girl named Sallie dying in the Finney residence or living in the town of Atchison. While researching, I listened to the Lights Out podcast episode on the Sallie House, and they revealed anthropology professors have done extensive research into the history of Atchison, Kansas, and they found no record of a girl named Sallie who either lived or died in the town. They did, however, find the headstone of someone named Sallie Isabel in the neighboring town of Huron, nearly 20 miles west of Atchison. This leaves us with an important question. If the house is supposedly haunted by the spirit of a young girl named Sallie, but there's no record of Sallie ever living in Atchison or dying in the home, then who or what is haunting the Sallie House? The Finney family lived in the home for several more decades, and it was reported several people died in the home in those ensuing years. Some believe they died at the hands of a vengeful spirit, though this is purely speculation. The family finally moved out of the home for good in 1947. For over 40 years, various tenants rented the home and moved in and out. And though some paranormal activity was reported, none of it was malevolent or dangerous. And there's an interesting theory behind it. According to some, the poltergeist activity in the Sallie House was more playful because women and children occupied the home. It was believed that the spirit haunting the home took issue with men, which makes sense when you consider the backstory of Sallie dying at the hands of Dr. Finney. But this leaves us with another important question. If Sallie was non-aggressive towards female tenants, what would happen when a male moved into the home? For decades, there was no answer. Until December 1992, when Tony and Debbie Pickman moved into the home. At first, all was well. the Pickmans moved and began settling in with no incident. Then, about a month after moving in, they noticed small but strange occurrences. Lights flickered and dimmed on their own. Their pets began to act strangely, and several times barked at seemingly empty spaces, with their hair standing on end. They experienced temperature fluctuations, with some areas having cold spots with unknown origins. Within a short time, Tony and Debbie welcomed a child into the home, and the nursery became the focal point of the poltergeist activity. Both reported hearing strange noises coming from the room, floorboards creaking as if someone was walking around, strange knocking, and scratching along the walls. At least once, they heard what sounded like furniture being moved around the room. But when they went up to check, they found the room exactly as they had left it. As time passed, the poltergeist activity only increased, with one article stating, quote, "The couple returned home from a day out to find all the nursery's stuffed animals in a circle on the floor," end quote. Another incident seemed to convince the Pickmans their home was haunted. One night, Debbie went up to the nursery and found a teddy bear in the center of the room and the lights on. No big deal. Except the next day, Tony's brother came to the home and attempted to take a picture of the bear. As he looked through the camera's viewfinder, the bear spun around on the carpet, leaving everyone speechless and horrified. When the strange occurrences first began, the couple dismissed them as the workings of an old house. But then, the activity grew to a dangerous level. On the night they discovered the stuffed animals in a circle, quote, Tony began to feel intense burning on his back, and it was later discovered that he had 3 significant scratches running down his spine, end quote. For the next 2 years, the family endured increasingly scary attacks against Tony, who continued to discover unexplained scrapes, scratches, and bruises on his body. And one night, after coming home from a long day at work, Tony was making himself a drink in the kitchen. When he turned around, he saw a small girl standing in the corner of the room, just staring at him. This sighting lasted for only a second, but it was enough to scare the hell out of him. Eventually, the Pickmans discovered the lore surrounding their new home, and to their credit, attempted to, quote, embrace Sallie as a sort of phantom daughter, end quote. Despite this, the attacks continued, and it was reported a doll caught fire during their young child's birthday party. At times, they reported hearing a disembodied female voice. Though it was hard to make out what the voice was saying, the couple felt as though the voice sounded anxious or fearful. As the attacks continued and poltergeist activity heightened, the Pickmans grew convinced the spirit was not a little girl named Sallie. Instead, they believed their home was haunted by a demon who was using Sallie as a cover. An article written by Deborah Pickman, entitled "The Sallie House Haunting: Physical Manifestations of Non-Physical Forces," detailed their apprehension about the alleged young girl haunting their home. Quote, "Truly, things are not always what they seem. It is often impossible to fathom that there is something that hides behind the innocence that is presented. But beware. This situation does exist, and it is often very difficult to recognize. Even after seeing with his own eyes the young apparition, Tony's gut feeling was to not trust that which was being presented to him. He refused to acknowledge or interact with what he referred to as it. It was at this point that the level of activity changed. Within a few short months, the activity escalated and became more physical and harmful, not limited to forceful attacks, scratches, fires, visions, and dreams. The apparitions began to appear adult in nature and depicted a more sinister force within the walls of our home. The personal experiences bordered on a mental attack. It was not what he ever considered actions or antics of an innocent little girl. Within 2 years, the Pickman family moved out of the Sallie House. In the nearly 30 years since the Pickmans moved out, the home has passed between several different owners, and though it currently sits vacant, it is a prime location for thrill seekers, ghost hunters, and paranormal investigators. According to the official Atchison website, visitors to the home have experienced a wide range of scary phenomena, including moving objects, unexplained scratches, bruises, or markings, phantom touches, cold spots, disembodied voices, phones and other electronics mysteriously having their batteries drained or stop working outright, and more. In some instances, guide dogs have refused to enter the nursery, where the Pickmans experienced most of the scary activity. While researching, I found an interesting article from the website kcghosts.com, which details 2 investigations. The first occurred on August 13, 2005, from 8 p.m. to 2:30 a.m. The second occurred on October 2, 2010, from 8 to 10 p.m. During the first visit to the Sallie House, 5 investigators spent over 6 hours using a variety of means to capture any strange phenomena. Beth McClanagan reported having bad, uncomfortable feelings while leaving the nursery, and stated she, quote, felt a heavy fatigue and weariness, end quote. Hugh McClanagan reported minimal occurrences, but did hear a radio turn on by itself. Kelly Patrick reported seeing, quote, a shadow quickly go from the bathroom and go through the closet door, end quote. She also reported several phantom touches, including feeling as though someone was playing with her hair and running a hand through the back of her hair. Becky Ray reported hearing the radio playing and feeling a cold spot in the nursery near a window facing the backyard. Miranda Stark reported hearing possible voices while standing on the porch, which she quickly recognized as the radio playing inside the house. EVPs were not captured during this investigation, and all camera footage was seemingly normal. During the second visit to the Sallie House, 4 investigators, including Kelly Patrick and Becky Ray, spent 2 hours in the home. Christina Anderson reported hearing, quote, a strange noise that sounded like it came from upstairs, end quote. To some, the noise sounded like someone clearing their throat, while others heard what sounded like someone yanking on the string of a light. The noise was captured on an audio recording. She reported feeling cold spots throughout the house, but especially in the kitchen and bathrooms. And at one point, the group smelled rotting garbage coming from the kitchen, though there was no identifiable source for the smell. Upstairs in the master bedroom, a strong floral smell was noticed, again with no identifiable source. She reported hearing low whispers, and various knocks throughout the home. Kelly Patrick reported feeling, quote, a quick cold breeze against my cheek in the master bedroom, end quote. Several others mentioned feeling the cool breeze at the time she felt it on her face. She also reported a citrus smell in the master bedroom, though she noted, quote, this always followed people in that room, end quote. Becky Ray reported finding, quote, the house much more active than on our previous visit 5 years earlier, end quote. She reported hearing footsteps going up the stairs while everyone was downstairs, various smells, hearing unexplainable knocks, and cold spots. She also reported seeing a shadow person, quote, walking in a circle in what used to be the nursery, end quote. Something interesting. During this visit, the investigators placed several stuffed animals on the floor in the nursery, attempting to simulate the incident experienced by the Pickmans, but no phenomena was recorded. Something else that's interesting. Seeing shadow people is a very common occurrence at the Sallie House. In fact, one article stated, quote, several investigative teams have apparently spotted these phantom entities. In a well-known instance, paranormal investigators were able to film what appeared to be a full-body apparition of a woman going downstairs and then vanishing near the bottom, end quote. For those brave enough, you can book an overnight stay at the Sallie House for $125 per person, with a 2-person minimum during November through August, and $150 per person with a 2-person minimum during September and October. If you need more time to work up the nerve to spend the night, you can also take a 1-hour self-guided tour for $20 per person. I'll admit, I'm a firm believer in haunted houses, ghosts, poltergeists, and demons. And it seems the Sallie House checks all these boxes. What makes this home so scary is the uncorroborated backstory. The lore says one thing, but with little to no evidence of its truthfulness, I immediately wonder, what is haunting the home? To me, a demon using a young girl as a cover is especially terrifying, because what presents on the surface as kind and gentle is anything but. Have you ever visited the Sallie House, either for a short tour, an overnight stay, or a paranormal investigation? If so, email me at redtreehousepod@gmail.com, and I'll feature your story in an upcoming episode. As we close this episode of the Red Treehouse, we're left with these lingering questions. What spirits lie behind the walls of this seemingly normal home in Atchison, Kansas? Is it truly the most haunted house in the United States? And if given the chance, would you spend a night in the Sallie House? I've shared the details. Now you decide for yourself. I'm your host, Will. Thanks for joining me in the Red Treehouse.